Hello, welcome back to Everyday Executive, where you will get my tips and experiences and opinions on how I became a nurse to a CEO. This is Everyday Executive, and welcome back. Today's episode, we're going to talk about how do you get that first milestone, that first job, kind of that first leg on your journey after you got your skill. We talked about it the last episode, cultivating that skill and really utilizing that skill to get your first job. So now, how do you get that first job, and how do you more importantly, how do you use that first milestone to cultivate the next skill of getting the job of your dreams, whether that's an executive, a CEO, or whatever that might look like? The first job that I had was a nurse. So we talked about that. I was a nurse. I was a BC student. So how did I do that? Got my first nursing job. I had to move. At that time, nursing wasn't, you couldn't get a job in nursing as prevalently as you can right now. So I had to move to a different city. I was 20 years old, moved to a different city, which, has its own experiences, and became a nurse on a critical care unit at that time. And at that time, I also was being floated to other units. And so I had to learn to be adaptable. I had to learn, again, all those things that you learn when you're on your own for the first time in a new city. But those experiences also helped me in my future career. I was scared at times. I was lonely at times. I was excited at times. And so I had to learn those different skill sets to cope. Learn how to be a nurse, which is very, very scary, right? That first job, you're always wondering, did I learn enough? Can I do enough? Do I know enough to be able to do this job? And I had all of those same feelings. But I utilized that to fuel myself and to learn more. So I really tried to utilize every day my experiences on my job to better myself at that time, which would be as a nurse. So, whatever industry you are in, don't let the small things go away. Really be eager to learn everything you can. Even if you're in a job where maybe that's not the career of your dreams, there are skills to learn that you should not underestimate. When I was floating to different units and learning different jobs, that can be a little bit daunting, right? There's a comfort in the familiarity of knowing what you know as you became more familiar with your job and your skills. But what I learned is, again, I became adaptable. And that's a key lesson that I think people underestimate. Once you get comfortable, you can get complacent. And so you really need to challenge yourself to become more in different areas. And what that also does is that you become more valuable to the company, right? As you learn more experiences and you learn to do more things, you now become a valuable employee for that industry. And that makes you, or starts to make you, become the go to person, which is my next lesson that I really had to learn. So, one of the things that I did really well was, again, I always went into everything with a positive attitude. Even if I was feeling overwhelmed, even if I was feeling, maybe a little nervous or scared because I was going into an unknown area, I also was, like I said, eager to learn. So I became the go to person. An example of that, where that really came into helping me in my next career path, was I had physicians that would literally go to my managers and say, "Hey, Kelly did awesome yesterday. I was going to her with XYZ, and I couldn't go to ABC because I either they maybe weren't giving them the positive energy that they were looking for, or maybe they didn't have the skill sets that was required. Whatever the case may be, I found that people were actually talking to my manager about being the go-to person or easy button, whatever language speaks to you in that way. But the point is, be the person that people want to work with, be the person that people want to talk to, be the person that you yourself want to go to when you need help. I think that is such an important skill that will further anyone in any industry with their career. And don't underestimate that. find ways to lead. So again, I was a new nurse. I was only a nurse for a year or two when, if there were absences, people calling in sick, stressful situations, I was asked to lead certain projects, certain staff, even as the newbie, if you will. And that skill set doesn't come from necessarily being the best person in your field. That skill set comes from being a positive person, knowing how to be adaptable, being the go to person that people want to talk to, knowing how you stay calm under stress, smiling often. Those skill sets aren't that, oh, I knew how to do this particular nursing function. That's not what managers and what people do to lead. And I think that's also the next step that I think people underestimate is they don't take the small opportunities to lead and become the person that is noticed by management in other ways. How that helped me is I had references again from all of those areas that I floated. So because I was willing to be adaptable and work in other units, because I was willing to be the go-to person, as we discussed, I had plenty of references when it came to my next journey of getting the management job. Don't underestimate the small things. The small things count. And I didn't even realize it at the time. Now, I wasn't perfect. I certainly wasn't perfect. And I'm not expecting you to be perfect either. No one is. But you really need to, at least 90 to 95% of the time, be always putting your best foot forward and being the person, again, that everyone wants to work with. Think about how you when you ask others for help, or maybe you have children and you're like, hey, I'm so busy today, I need the laundry done. Do you tend to go to everyone always and it's evenly divided if you have 3 children? Or do you sometimes, and if you're honest, go to the person who you know is immediately going to say, yes, I can get that done for you, mom or dad, or whatever the case may be? I think as humans, we tend to go to the person who is the easy button. So be that person. Be that person every day, or make a conscious effort to be that person when you're working. Showing up also matters. And by showing up, not just showing up, punching in a clock, ending the clock, but show up and be invested in whatever's going on in your organization. If there are parades, or there are events, or there are special volunteer opportunities, show up at those. Show up and be involved. Volunteer to maybe lead one of those projects. So while that's still not necessarily your particular department or whatever you're working in that particular industry, again, it's an opportunity to show others that you are willing to be engaged in that organization. And I don't think that can be understated as well, because that's another opportunity to get noticed. So all of these things then kind of led me into my next career path, which was being asked to be a manager. So I was asked to be a manager at the age of 23 as a director. And again, I only had about 3 years of actual nursing experience. And so this was, I guess I would say an honor. And people have asked me, how did that happen? And the only thing I can say is that I utilized every opportunity that I was given. I didn't, the small things mattered. And that's why I think it's important that if you're getting back into the work industry, or you're working for that first milestone, I want to help you with these tips and tricks that I know I look for as a CEO in others. I look for that in others when I'm working with teams and groups to see who is the next person that I want to mentor, that I want to help develop. And I know that in your areas, there are people looking at that too. So you need to take every opportunity to get noticed and be genuine in that way. Be eager to learn. Be eager to learn all the time. There were opportunities that I didn't even realize were those opportunities until after the fact. So in your industry, you're always going to find those areas that are going to seem stressful. Maybe you want to say, gosh, no, I just can't take one more thing on my plate. But really take a step back. Can you? Because if you can, that could be the opportunity that helps springboard you forward. So I really just want you to really think about that as you work through your next milestone. Next, we're going to talk about at the next episode about my first management job. Again, I was 23 years old. Most people who worked there were older than I was. So we'll talk about how I developed the skill to be a manager when I had zero experience. Thank you for listening today. If you have any tips, problems, questions, I'd love to be able to help support you at everydayexecutivepodcast@gmail.com, and I'll be sure to respond to you. If you liked this video, please watch the next video that it will be posted soon, or watch my last video on the beginning of my journey. Give a like, subscribe if you'd like, and we'll talk soon.
Opinions and experiences expressed on this podcast are solely those of the host and do not express the views or opinions of past or current employers. The opinions and experiences should not be considered professional advice and is not necessarily indicative of future results.